All right, y'all, we're back. Looks like 11, 12, 13, 14 all rolled into this nice longer format video. We were supposed to go to West Virginia and spend time with my grandparents and uncles and cousins, but unfortunately we got big sick, and basically Christmas time frame, I just ended up having to stay home, so we didn't make it up there, which is sad, and I miss everybody. However, it was pretty great for New Year's because once we got past the whole infectious thing, we were able to spend New Year's hanging out with her cousins, with Haley's cousins, and my in-laws. And that was pretty fun. We got to spend time with the nieces and goof off and just watch the ball drop. Once we were done with the whole holiday season time frame, Haley still had Monday off since that was the actual observed holiday, so she and I packed up the 4Runner with our saws and two-stroke mix and all this other stuff and went out and started clearing. The goal here was there are all of these new growth pines that have popped up over the last several years, along with a lot of the Bradford pears that I absolutely in every way, shape, and form despise, but we need to get them cleared out. So she and I decided that we'd go take that little job on, and you'll see here as we progress that there's actually a lot more material that we need to cut through. And the whole goal is to try to open up the house site where we're going to actually build, but also it would be really cool because she wants to put a swing in one of the massive, I think they're oaks, I'm not sure, but anyway, we've got these 4 massive trees, and you'll see in the video here that the goal is to kind of work our way back through the brush, clean it all out, and get that space opened up so that we can put in like a tire swing or something like that and just enjoy these massive beauties. It's kind of funny. The last couple weeks I've realized that I probably have an addiction at this point, which is chainsaws, which is weird, sort of, I guess. But anyway, and I think I've been driving the wife nuts with all these like logger videos and all this other stuff. But I tell you what, I've really come to find that I really enjoy running my saw and clearing out the space and just putting in work. And maybe it's just a function of doing work and also combining it with like mechanical devices, which I have a love affair with. But it's also been kind of funny because I've realized that there are guys out there that take chainsaws and they modify them, right? They open up the ports on them so that they breathe more and they run faster and they make lots more power. And that's been an interesting situation. Normally I'd be worried about this sort of addiction, but as you can see, there's plenty of trees left to cut down, and I'm going to need all that motivation to actually get out there and continue to do this work. And the thing is, the property is covered in this sort of thing, and I want it all clear. One of the other projects I took on while I was out there was taking down this big tree here. It had a lot of lean, and I really didn't want it to lean the way it wanted to go. Unfortunately, I didn't really have the resources to bring this tree down correctly. I tried to wedge it over and push it into the open space on the right here, but it just didn't work out correctly. Ended up calling my neighbor to come push it over. Thursday I took to try to buck that tree that I took down, the leaner, and this is the first time I really did anything with serious hardwood tree for firewood. Anyway, one of the things we did was we took this tree here and we put it up on this kind of round that I cut. What you'll see is I cut a wood cookie, and then I take this 16-inch section, prop it underneath the log. Unfortunately, it didn't quite work out the first try, and the tree kept wanting to rotate and it would fall right off the pedestal that I'd put it up on. And eventually though, we managed to get it up onto the round, and then I was able to buck it the regular way. Yeah, like you're gonna stop it from rolling over.
All right, we got this big old tree down, and I'm thinking, so I've got it propped up on a log down there, and that way I can buck it a little bit easier, or at least until I get to the log, and I'll have to figure out what else to do from there. But man, getting that log cut was a pain. So I'm gonna go ahead and sharpen this bad mamma jamma.
A sharp chain is absolutely necessary when you've got a smaller displacement saw. This is a 45cc saw, as I said before, and while it's got an 18-inch bar on it, the actual usable length is closer to 16. As you watch this, where I make this first pass, you're going to see where that bar basically disappears. So when I say this is the biggest tree I've cut, at the very least, the width is actually the biggest tree. In fact, this is probably the biggest tree I'm going to be able to cut in just one shot because I just don't have enough bar. I can't really put enough bar on this to do bigger trees because at 18 inches, technically the usable length is what, 16 inches? But at 45 cc's, there's really not enough power to draw a 0.325 chain that I'm running here. So I can't go any bigger unless I go with like a narrower curve. And I could do that. I could put say a 20-inch bar with a quarter pitch chain, but meh, I'm not gonna worry about it at the moment. Unless there's a real big job that I need to do where I actually genuinely need a 20-inch, I'll go from there. I'm learning a lot with this tree. This is the first real big hardwood I've ever brought down, and like I said, it's about 16 inches in diameter. I'm using some tricks that I learned from YouTube videos and whatnot, where like you put the bumper spikes up against the edge of the tree, and then you rotate the edge of the tip or the edge of the bar so that like the tip can score a line, run the saw real quick, make a line, and then you cut at that line, and that kind of gives you a uniform measurement. So in this case, my rounds are about 16 inches long, which is cool because I've got about 16 by 16. So if you watch, you'll see where I do the little trick where I was talking about. I use the bar to kind of measure the distance, score a line, and start my cut. But one of my other favorite tricks I've learned is that if you look underneath the knot there is there's another one of my rounds. And what I've done is I'm using the rounds as I cut them to prop them underneath the tree and kind of keep it lifted as I work my way down. Once I get far enough though, I'd have to put another set of rounds underneath the next section. Otherwise it's just gonna lay down. So what I end up doing is to keep myself from getting pinched, and you'll see it here in a second, I take a wedge after I start my cut, get it deep enough, tap the wedge in, and then that way it makes up the space, the difference that I've just cut, and then I continue on down once I've got a nice tight wedge. And that way the round falls down without me getting pinched. For firewood though, I'm pretty sure knots are terrible for trying to, when you're trying to cut with an axe, and I don't have like a splitting machine. So I just go ahead and take off this big old knot. This is a really good demonstration of where I really struggled. I don't know if it's just because I don't have enough, if I'm not sharpening good enough, or if I just don't have enough power, or both. But either way, this knot was really difficult to get through, and I worked my way through it just fine, and it took a while. But still, I felt like maybe I should have been able to do more. The nice thing is that, and I'm glad I did this, I end up running out of gas, and I created myself a nice little ledge that I can work from. So there's that scoring trick. Rip myself a line and start cutting. And as we get through to this cut, I realize I'm struggling, man. Like this thing is bogging down. You can see me rocking the saw to try to get it in there, and then I realize, out of gas. While I'm at it, I'll go ahead and top off the bar oil, and we can get right back to working. The funny thing is that I've already been started looking at larger saws like 60cc, but I'm starting to think that maybe a 70cc saw would be the right answer. Chuck a 24-inch bar on there, but I also really want to build a saw, so I'm thinking like port it, bark box, that sort of thing. Anyway, just daydreaming. Alright, so this is that cut I was talking about, where if you use your wedge, which you should have some because they are very handy, you can actually make up the difference between the spot, what is it, the kerf or whatever, the gap that you just opened up. Tap in the wedge, and then that way it makes up the difference, and then work your way through the rest of the log, and that way when it makes its cut, it doesn't pinch you as you get towards the bottom. As I'm working through this tree, I'm starting to think, hey, it's getting easier. And we're getting into like the 14-inch areas. So I'm thinking that the saw really works best with more like 14-inch trees instead of like 16 or 18. That said, what I've really learned about this is that Stihl really marketed it correctly. This is really truly a good firewood saw.
Tell you what. A lot done today in this little Stihl. Works out pretty good.
Alright, so at the end of the day, after helping Don take care of a project he needed to work on, I headed back to the house. I had a bunch of these rounds stuffed in the back of the 4Runner along with all the tools and equipment and whatnot. Figured, you know what, let's get myself set up. I want to do quite a bit more firewood this year. And anyway, so I backed on in to set myself to unload. As always, my wife's little red wagon is indispensable. I'm able to take it, unload 2 rounds at a time, and then drag it into the backyard. Alright, once I was unloaded and stacked all up, made this nice little pile here and figured, alright, well, it's time to clean up. Pulled out the leaf blower because, man, oh man, all that material, it's time to blow it out. I gotta clean it. So yeah, the Husqvarna and the leaf blower makes quick work of this job. Friday was pretty cool too. I decided to set myself up a wood cutting station. I actually went back out and picked up a few more rounds, and that way I could have this just a little bit more complete operation where I could just make firewood. Anyway, thanks for watching. We'll catch you next week.